All right, welcome to the Red Alert podcast. I'm your host, Joe Chapp, along with my co host, Cindy Berry. And finally, if you guys are new to the podcast, we got our page back.
Woohoo!
Page back.
Should have never been taken away in the first place. Shame
Well,
on you, book.
well, when I sent you, did I ever send you why they took it down?
No, you never sent me the specifics. You told me over the phone.
Okay, so they took down the page for this specific reason, and I want your expertise because I know you're gonna love this.
Okay.
So they took down the page because there was a report on our page that we were talking about anti-vaccines and political stuff, and I was speaking with a Facebook support person, right? And I was like, look, my co-host is a politician, but we were never talking about the vaccine.
No.
Matter of fact, I go, listen, I don't know if you're a hockey fan or you're not a hockey fan. She admitted that she's a San Jose Sharks fan.
Oh, that's part of the problem.
Well, yeah. But she's like, I think your page is great. I was like, it is great. I go, but we don't talk about the vaccine. We just talk about how bad the Red Wings were last year. And then this whole year we didn't get to talk about the Red Wings. They're actually doing good. So I just no. So that's why they got taken down. So that was interesting. But
well, that's ridiculous because who wants to talk about the vaccine anyway? Yeah, I'm going to go to a hockey podcast, a Red Wings podcast to hear about the vaccine. I mean, that's absurd. I mean, who's even talking about that anymore? Who even cares? I mean, the only time it's even relevant here is we're talking about Tyler Bertuzzi and, back in the, that's the only time we ever talked about it. And that's because it was all over the news.
But we weren't like actively advocating for you not to take the vaccine.
Whatever. Neither what? Yeah. How absurd. Well, that's, you know what? These are just people who are jealous of how well this podcast does and all the people who love coming here to talk hockey and the Red Wings. I can't wait because we got a lot to talk about today.
We do got a lot to talk about. There's a lot we have to get to. The one thing that we got to start with is obviously the big news was Saturday where Larkin got pretty much knocked out unconscious. Yeah. And then David Perron comes in there, swinging a hammer, swinging the big Perroni stick. And then next thing you know, he's out for 5 games, but he's appealing it. And I love that his agent said it was a kangaroo court. There was a stupid decision. And then if you think about it from my perspective, I was thinking about the podcast was the Rasmus Dahlin got his head taken off by Austin Matthews, and he didn't get a game. David Perron comes in there to defend his own teammate, and he gets 6 games. Just doesn't make any sense. And then yesterday, I'm hearing the lady from the ESPN say, well, because he took strides towards Zub and whatever. I'm like, shut up, lady. Like, shut up. We all know where you get your information from. It's from the league. So they're not going to say, yeah, we made a mistake. Like, we fucked up. That's exactly what they would say. So.
Yeah, no, this is ridiculous. This is like the Salem witch trials on ice. This is ridiculous that they're coming after David Perron for doing something that every enforcer out there, and he's not even an enforcer, any decent teammate is going to go and let the opposition know that isn't okay. That's not going to happen. You're not going to come after my captain without it being answered. And I don't think it was excessive. There wasn't any kind of excessive injury. It was interesting because they started to say, well, if there had been more extensive injuries, he might have been out 50, 60 games, which is insane because Dylan Larkin gets knocked out. And that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a pretty significant injury. You've got guys getting lips busted up and bleeding all over the ice, but they're not even calling 4-minute majors on that. They're calling 2-minute minors, and there's hardly a breath of word about it other than, oh, we think he pulled the stick up. I mean, granted, kind of got caught on that one. You got to be careful, Lucas, you got to be a little careful of that. But there are other cases where that isn't what's happening. So clearly there's a bias here somewhere. And, David Perron has to be one of the most decent guys, solid player, experienced veteran. He's not that kind of guy. If he, the fact that he went after that guy was because it was warranted, because they needed to send a message. So good for him. And I give David Perron a hell of a lot of credit for taking whatever punishment they're going to dish out. And I'm happy that he's contesting it, by the way. But good for him, because you know what? He's literally taking 1, 2, 3, however many games. He's taking it for the team. And he needed to send that message. Somebody did. And kudos to David Perron for doing that. I'm all for it. He's my guy.
Here's the thing. I don't hate what they did. what Dave Prawn did, because one, it sends a message to other teams that, look, if you're gonna do that dirty cheap shit, you're gonna get your ass kicked. That's
That's
number
right.
one. And number
That's right.
two, what I am starting to hate about the NHL is their inconsistent referee calls, where they're, like what happened Saturday, what should have been a major on both parts, right? Okay, you kick
Right.
Prawn out, you kick Joseph out. But I'm watching NHL games where, like, there's a guy that's getting hit from the back that they don't call, but then they call this one. It's inconsistent the way that these refs are getting taught. And right now, I mean, if you look at that game, like, there's no doubt in anybody's mind that if you watched that, if you're not even a hockey fan, you don't even need to be a hockey fan. If you watched that, you could have called it. You could have been like, that's it. That is it.
Well, they've got their favorites. And right now, the Detroit Red Wings they don't have favored nation status. So they're not going to get all that preferential treatment. I got to tell you, when I was watching the game yesterday, and which was, let's talk about that one, almost gave me a heart attack. By the way, my good friend Darren McCarty says, Cindy, it's too early in the season for you to be this emotionally invested. And I say, I can't help it, Darren. So, and by the way, if we had grinders, if we still had enforcers like my buddy D-Mac, which, by the way, got to plug his new book.
Yep.
Which is, yep. And as you can see, personalized to me.
Move it over. Go over, right there.
There you go.
Right there. Yep, right there.
All right.
Now it's
this is a graphic novel.
Now that book is so easy, even I can read it. So
even Joe can read it. Check this out. Look at this.
Yeah.
Full color. They got lots of pictures. So it's perfect for you.
It's great. It makes for a great book that you need to read, like, when you're not feeling it, like your ADHD kicking into overdrive.
And if we still had guys like Darren, we wouldn't have this problem. And you know what? We're starting to show that now. So the reality is that, so I'm watching this show is what I'm telling you. I'm watching the game rather. And all they can talk about is the next game coming up, which is the, battle of the Connors, Connor Bedard versus Connor McDavid. I got to tell you, I like Connor Bedard. It's not that I don't like, he'd actually never met him, so I don't know him personally, can't say, but I am so sick and tired of hearing about Connor Bedard. That's all they talk about. Everybody's enamored with this kid. And the reality is, if Connor Bedard would have done, if he would have had kind of, the kind of guts to do something that David Perron did, do you think we'd be sitting here talking about a 1-game suspension? No. Connor Bedard would be allowed to do that and say, oh, well, he's still learning the NHL and we're going to give him a break because, he's this, prodigy or whatever. And so I think it's clear that the inconsistencies can be traced back to really kind of what they want outcomes to be. And I clearly think that the Detroit Red Wings are just not in favored nation status for whatever reason. And we're going to continue to see some of these lopsided calls, some of this inconsistency. I think we're just going to have to live with it as Wings fans. I think that's just all there is to it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I harken back to the Austin Matthews absolutely cross-checking Rasmus Dahlin in the face. I mean, straight in the neck, like right in the neck.
Yeah.
And nothing happened to him. So that's the way I look at it. So, like, you know what? It's good for Perron because they sent the message to other teams that we're not going to get pushed around. And I'm pretty sure everyone in the dressing room realized when David Perron did that, not only did it send a message that, hey, we're not taking shit anymore. And I'm David Perron. I have never got suspended ever in my career. But here we go. I'm taking one for the team because I know that no one's going to hit my captain like that. No one's going to take advantage of us like that. And if Klim Kostin was in Saturday, which he was hurt, but we're going to get that also. But if he was in, he would have wrote some kids. So this team has much more fight than they've had in years past. And even the guy like Patrick Kane, like I loved him. And there's another guy that we're going to talk about later too, who is absolutely just dominating right now. And I love the way he's playing on both sides of the ice. But this team last year we talked about, Cindy, they didn't have the same fight. They didn't have the same grit. They didn't have the same tenacity. And this year they have a little bit more fight in them. And that's exactly what we wanted from them.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's not coming from one guy. It's coming from several guys. And I'm excited to talk about the people that have really stepped up to the plate too, that had been kind of sleepers. They've been struggling. They've been having issues. And, I don't know who you're going to talk about or who you want to talk about first, but there's actually a lot of different guys to talk about. The thing that worried me about that game in St. Louis was I don't like the fact that they're giving up so many leads. Every time they get the lead, they're giving it up. There's too many takeaways going on, not in a good way on the other side. We're getting too many pucks taken away from us. We're not controlling as much as I'd like. But I'll tell you, I really think these last 3 losses, which broke my heart, even though I'm supposed to not get upset about this, according to Darren. But they shouldn't have been. They shouldn't have been. But I think the reason why, here's what I'm telling myself, my theory, and all of you who are listening, and Joe, maybe you can give me this. I think it did have to do with, for the most part, Patrick Kane. I know he wasn't involved in that first loss, but the last 2, I think it's an adjustment period. I think what they're trying to do is they're adjusting to a couple of things. They had some major upsets. One, they lost Larkin, then they lost Perron. Costin was also out. So there's 3 main pieces right there. Then you're inserting Patrick Kane. Any new element you're going to insert into that. I think it was just a matter of an adjustment period, and I'm really hoping that we're going to see more consistent play. I think we're going to see them. You got to have regelling now, and a readjustment. And then, quite frankly, when Larkin comes back, you're going to have another adjustment that goes on. That's what happens with injuries. So I think it was just a matter of personnel changes and adjustments, and that's the result of those last couple losses. But we can't really afford too many more of those, in my opinion. Just the numbers don't work for you. It just you're fighting an uphill battle, and the Wings don't function well in that environment. At least they haven't up to this point.
Yeah, well, I think the Patrick Kane coming in, I think first of all, it kind of throws the team off because there's been players that were playing on DeBrincat's line that are getting thrown to the third line, or maybe put up at the first line, and then not only that, but you got a guy in Patrick Kane who I imagine there's a lot of players on the team that are like, holy shit, we're playing with Patrick Kane, like this is freaking crazy.
Oh, I'm sure there's an element
because
of that.
I remember who was it? I think it was Zetterberg or someone that was playing on the 2002 Red Wings team, and he looked over and he seen Brett Hall, and he was like, holy shit, like I'm playing with Brett Hall. No, it was Datsuk. Datsuk seen Brett Hall, and he was like, holy shit. And then he got to play on the same line as Brett Hall, and he was like, I'm just going to give this guy the puck the whole time. So, I mean, sometimes it's like an adjustment period to get a guy like that in there, especially someone of Patrick Kane's, like, notoriety. If you got someone that was just a random guy, I think it'd be easier. But with Patrick Kane, it's a little bit different because you're trying to figure out what he does best, because those type of players, he's just a different type of player. Like, we've seen it when he got his first game. Like, he just looks so natural out there skating with the puck. Like, just in it, he almost scored twice. It was amazing, and they lost that game, but more so, I think it was more the goalie issues, and we're gonna get to that later too. But I just think that here the Patrick Kane thing, I think they're gonna start to settle down. I think yesterday they kind of showed glimpses of it. I don't think they played their best defensive game. I don't think Husso played his best game. We're gonna get to that later, but I just think that when you talk about this team, you look at how many goals they're scoring. I think they're outscoring some of their mistakes right now. But eventually, I think it's going to all iron out. And hopefully when you get Larkin back and you kind of start coasting. But we talked about it on the podcast before. You went to Florida and seen Goofy, my little cousin. We talked about it. We talked about it, how at the quarter mark, you wanted to be in a playoff position. You were in a playoff position. Now, when you get to New Year's Eve, you want to be in a playoff position. That way, you're right there. And when you get into January and you get into February, you can start to make a little bit of a run and start to make a run towards the playoffs. And getting Patrick Kane, that's going to help you out a lot.
Well, the thing that they're really going to have to focus on, I think, between now and the All-Star break, they've really got to focus on playing defensive hockey. We don't have a whole lot of natural defensive forwards, but yet Derek Lalonde kind of comes from the coaching tree, or it's always been his philosophy to really preach defensive hockey. So hopefully we can get some, have the leadership in the locker room step forward and really make that a priority, that everyone plays defensive hockey. The forwards have to play defensively. Obviously, you need the offensive firepower, and you've got that in spades now, quite frankly, with Patrick Kane. And DeBrincat was doing well as it was. You got Veleno that's coming up. You got Robbie Fabry. You got Dylan Larkin. These are all guys capable of really creating a lot of offense, which is fantastic. But I think they need to understand that they really should concentrate on defensive hockey. I'm sure that Derek Lalonde is telling them this. So I think if they can make that transition, make that commitment to playing defensive hockey between now and the All-Star break, they're going to have everything that they're going to need to push forward up into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I think this Larkin injury is going to help him out because I know I was going to make a video on this and we did the podcast today, so this will be a great time to say it. But I think the Larkin injury is going to allow the team to get stronger because what it's going to be able to do is these players that are coming in, they're playing at they're getting moved up a line like Veleno or Cop. Compher is out too, so there's guys that are stepping in that wouldn't got the chance if those two were out. And I think that this is going to make your team stronger. When you talk about injuries and you talk about injuries in hockey, it always happens. But at some point, you do need depth. You do need guys that can step up at any given time. And I think what the Red Wings have been missing for years is depth when they had injuries. And if you have enough depth in your pool and they're ready in their season, then they come into the NHL from the AHL, like Berggren. Berggren comes in, he plays an outstanding game yesterday. There's no coincidence. That's what the Red Wings have been able to do. And obviously, the rebuild took a little bit longer than most people imagined. But this is exactly what Stevie Y wanted to set up. He wanted to set up a place where if there is an injury, they can maneuver around it and get some guys up and give them a chance. And Berggren's taking the shit. That first games that he came up, he took the shot and just ran with it.
I was going to ask you about that because the first thing I thought of when I saw the production out of Berggren last night is I thought to myself, we've got that rumor that's floating around out there that he may be subject to a trade or part of a trade deal. And I thought to myself, I wonder if someone has tipped him off to all of this or he knows about it, or maybe he saw it on, the Detroit Red Wings news web or Facebook page or on Red Alert or something. But it's interesting, by the way, how so much of our content and so much of our analysis ends up getting echoed in the locker room, by the way. It's a lot of fun. But anyway, the point was, I was wondering if that had anything to do with the fact that he knows that he may be on the trade block and doesn't want to go anywhere, especially now with all the superstars he's really got playing with them now with Patrick Kane, DeBrincat, Larkin. These are all guys who are solidly credentialed and perfect for a young forward like Jonathan Berggren.
Well, we know one thing about Stevie Yzerman. He is going to make sure that, he's going to push every button he can possible to make sure he gets the most out of you. And if he sees that he can get something out of you, he's going to keep you around and he's going to keep you with this organization. I think Berggren, I think he was on the trade block, and I think he still might be on the trade block. But if he keeps continuing to play this way, I don't think Stevie Y is going to be like, I can get rid of him. No, I think he's going to say, all right, let's go to the next prospect that I can get rid of, because they do have a wealth of prospects down there, and then they have prospects over in Sweden and all that stuff. So they got some guys that they could trade, but realistically, I love that, Berggren's getting a shot and that he's going to have a shot to compete with this roster and even show himself out a little bit, because we seen him last year. He's a rookie trying to learn the game. The team's better this year, and he's playing a really good game.
Well, I think every single player on this roster, or even guys that are getting called up out of the A, every one of them has to compete. They have to make themselves untradeable.
Yep.
And I think that Jonathan Berggren understood that. I think the message was sent to him, and I think he responded. And just like when Stevie Y responded when, Scotty Bowman kind of threatened to possibly trade him. He wanted to let him know nobody's going to get a free pass here. And I think that that's kind of the posture that they're adopting. So, if you want to stay with this Red Wings team, who everybody agrees, the reason why Patrick Kane came here, the reason why Alex DeBrincat came here is they know that there's something special getting ready to happen with this team, and they want to be a part of it. Yep. And so for those guys who don't want to find themselves left out on some other, mediocre loser team or whatever, and they want to stay here, they're going to have to fight for it, and they're going to have to work for it every single shift, every single game.
Well, like I do, Cindy, that competition brings out the best in everyone. When you're around people that you are competing against who are at the same level or might be even better, it forces you to raise your game. And right. I look at Berggren, I look at some of these guys. There's one guy we're going to talk about next. He's the guy I really want to talk about, because I think he's having a hell of a year. And someone mentioned him in the comments. We're going to get to that. But you want to have competition. And I think Stevie Y has strived for this team finally to have competition. That's why he loaded it up with veterans, to kind of give this a little bit of competition, because competition breeds success. When you're going against in practice against like Calvin Pickard said it yesterday. He used to be the Red Wings goaltender. He said it yesterday when he was talking to ESPN. He said, when I'm at practice, I'm going against the Edmonton Oilers. Like I'm going against McDavid. I'm going against Vander Kane and Nugent Hopkins and all these guys. And that's going to make me a better player. And I said, you know what? It's the same for if you're a good hockey team and you're playing against each other all week long, and then you finally get to play a game. It kind of breeds success into that game.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why this whole mentorship, I think, de facto mentorship program that Stevie's got going on, bringing on these veterans to help train up his guys that are going to probably eventually be part of a Stanley Cup winning team here in the near future, is to help give them that experience, that knowledge, and that veteran presence that is so important in the locker room. So they've got to be able to, I think they really want to take advantage of that, especially these young guys. They know what they've got their hands on, and they don't want to find themselves out of a job, certainly. And I think they don't want to find themselves off this roster or out of this organization, because it does have a very good reputation in and among the guys. A lot of players want to come here, and so they're going to have to make sure that that they solidify their spot here. And if they don't, they're going to find themselves going somewhere they may not want to be.
Exactly right. That's how it should be, and that's how we wanted it to be in the past years, and it's finally starting to come to fruition. But I want you to take a look at these stats. So if we look at the stats on here, the shots against per game, the Detroit Red Wings are 22nd in the league, 31.4 shots for per game, 21st in the league, 30.2. So they're giving up 31 to 30. They're shooting 30, but they give up 31. That's not a really good shot percentage if you want to go against. But their goals against average is 329. Their goals per game is 379. Again, a little bit closer than it should be. Their shooting percentage, though, is second in the league. So that tells you everything about this team, because they're shooting the puck. It's going in the net. Now, if we could just get some effing goaltending, I'll be happy. But you know what? We can't get goaltending from these guys, except Alex Lyon, who I like.
Alex Lyon is really... and you said he was going to be the most surprising player, and I think you're probably right. He has really stepped up to the plate and filled in. I think where maybe Reimer fell short a little bit, and where Husso has been struggling too. I think Lyon's been a great fit. I think it's been and I think it's really been a benefit to this organization to carry those three goalies. But at the same time, I'm not sure it's enough. I just don't. And it's not like you can carry another one. But I think they really do need to make a change there if there's going to be long-term success deeper into the playoffs, or even getting us there, because you're right. We're still lacking in goaltending. I think if they up the defensive hockey play, that will help as well. But you've got these guys, they're facing too many shots, and the ones that they are facing, they're letting too many in. I know that sounds very simplistic, but that's the reality of the situation. The other thing is right. The Wings have got to keep the puck in their zone. They're spending way too much time chasing pucks through the neutral zone. They're losing battles they shouldn't be losing. They're losing control. They're turning over. There's just too much opportunity for their opposition to gain possession of the puck, and then for the Wings to get back into the zone in order to take those shots on net. The problem is it's just taking them too much time to get them there. They're spending way too much time in the other zone. There's not enough time in the O zone.
Well, if you look at the goalies on this team, I mean, look at 368 goals against average for Husso. That's not going to get it done. 86 save percentage. That's not going to get it done. And then I look at the RBS right there, which is really bad start. Husso has 4, Lyon has 1, and Reimer has 0. I mean, you would like to see one. You would like to see your best goaltender and Husso probably have 1 to 0, and the fact that the backups have really bad starts, and their goals against is at the 2 mark, and their save percentage is over 9. I mean, that's what I just can't stand what we're seeing right now, because I look at those guys and I go, who did I expect more out of? Right? I expected more out of Husso. I didn't know what we were getting with Reimer or Lyon, and then the fact that Lyon is the best of a bunch. I mean, I don't know how much you can keep this going.
Basically, your third string goalie has got the numbers that your starting goalie should have.
Right. That's what I thought. And yesterday when I'm watching Husso, people are making excuses. They're like, "Oh, it was a tip puck." I'm like, guys. at some point as a goaltender, you have to stop that. You have to make that one stop that you're not expected to make, but you make it because you are the best goaltender on the ice. And he didn't do that. And finally he made a great save on a breakaway that really saved the game, and that was the one that you needed. So he made the save in the end, but I would like him to make more saves like that, instead of giving up 4 or 5 goals. Like, that's just not going to happen. That's not going to get it done against good teams.
Well, maybe the problem is that they've got these guys spending too much time selling little mini hockey sticks on TikTok, than they have concentrating on keeping goals, pucks out of the net. I just, by the way, I told you I saw this right on TikTok. It comes across my TikTok feed. I see Alex Lyon, and of course I stopped to watch it because, he's kind of a kooky kind of guy, but I like him. I like that guy. Goalies are goofy anyway. I can say this because you're a goalie, right? So you can appreciate this. By the way, our municipal attorney was a former goalie from Michigan too, so I always tease him about, Bob, you're a little weird because you used to be you're a goalie. So, but anyway, so he's a little weird, but I like him. I like Alex Lyon. I like his perspective. Of course, I like his production right now. But anyway, it comes up on TikTok, right, that him and Husso are hawking these little hockey sticks that are like Dominic Hasek legacy hockey sticks, sponsored by Coca-Cola.
Right.
I was sitting here wondering to myself, boy, these guys are thinking when I get to the NHL, man, what's it going to be like? I'm going to be doing this and then I'm going to be in the locker room and I'm going to be out there, saving, the day and all this stuff. When in reality, what are you doing? You're selling little hockey sticks, At the end of the day, is that what you think? You're probably thinking I did all this work to get here and I'm selling little hockey sticks. But anyway.
Yeah, I'm going to be in an Enterprise commercial. No, you're just selling me hockey sticks, dude.
Right. And I'm sure they're not getting paid anything extra because let's it was one of those paid partnership things.
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's not like Husso. I mean, Husso is probably using those in games. That's why his goals against average is so high.
That's what I'm saying. They're too preoccupied with little hockey sticks, little goaltender sticks. They don't, not pay attention to their own. I don't know.
Oh my God.
Anyway, I just had to say because I thought it was just funny. I was just kind of like, I thought he was gonna say something, about state of the team or whatever, and then he's, I get this little hockey stick thing. But anyway, so the thing is with the goaltending is that there has been a lack of consistency, and when your starting goaltender is your worst performing goaltender, you could have 10 of them and it's not going to matter. They've got to remedy the problem. And I agree with you. At some point, you have to take responsibility for what's happening in your paint. You know what I'm saying? You've got to be able to protect it, and you can't rely on other people to do that. You can't say, oh, this was a bad bounce. Yeah, that happens, right? You get a bad bounce. You get weird goals. I have to say, Connor Bedard slid in a beautiful one yesterday. I did watch enough of that next game to see that. I mean, it would have been very tough to stop that kind of a goal from going in. But when you're getting the easy shots, they're coming from a mile away. You can see them. I can see them. I can stop it. Hey, if I can stop that puck, we got a problem, right? I mean, you've got to be able to take accountability for that, and you've got to remedy it. Otherwise, you're going to continue making the same mistakes.
It's not like, these goals that are going in are abnormal. It's not like these goals that are going in you haven't saw before. Eventually,
not like you need Vasilevsky to stop that goal.
No, you just need a guy that gets in there and makes the save. And when I watch Husso, there's some goals that he gives up that is just like frightening to me, because he's giving up these goals that are just not they should never be scored on, first of all. And the second part about it is, like, I hear people all the time saying, well, if you just, it got tipped or he was screened, that's part of your job as a goaltender. I mean, eventually you have to make those saves. It doesn't matter if you're screened or it's getting tipped. The best goaltenders in the NHL, the ones that are on playoff teams, they make those saves. Period. End of story. And the fact that Husso can't make that save, it's a little bit frightening to me.
Well, but Husso's made some amazing saves. He has. I mean, it's like, this is the thing. It's like he can stop the weird pucks. He can stop the weird bounces. He can stop the tough ones. He can take up a lot of space in that net when he wants to. And I've seen him make some amazing plays. But at the same time, as you said, Joe, he's letting in all the easy stuff. So it's kind of like it doesn't do you any good to make all these outstanding plays if you can't be reliable on the basics type of stuff. So
it's just like if you can shoot an empty net, you should be able to shoot an empty net as a professional. It's about getting that puck through traffic, and the elite ones do it, and the ones that can score, they also do, and they make teams pay. But if you can't put the puck in the net, you're not going to be a forward. Same thing for a goalie. You have to keep the puck out of the net, and it doesn't matter how you keep it out. Hell or by high water, get your pad on it, get your arm on it, get your blocker on it, glove on it. Doesn't matter. Whatever saves the day, saves the day, and it keeps it out of the net. When Husso was having great success last year, the reason he had success is he made these outstanding saves at the critical time and that's when you thought, okay, we do have a goaltender. We have a goaltender we can count on. This year, it's been the exact opposite. He has not made those clutch saves. He has not made the saves that you kind of expect him to make. He has not made the saves that, you just need a save at some point. And I think he is struggling with that. And that's something that hopefully he gets better as the season goes on, or maybe after January 1st, he gets a lot better. Maybe he gets on a hot streak going into the playoffs or something like that. But you need your best goaltender to be your best goaltender. And I don't care about if it got tipped or he screened, like go to hell. He's got to save it, period.
So the question is, what do we do about this? Because what if it doesn't get better? And at what point does Stevie Y decide? What decision does he make? Does he go to a tandem team, get rid of the 3 goaltenders, and just trade up and try to get somebody else to replace maybe 2 of them? What does he do? Or does he try to just swap one of them out, stay with the 3 goaltender system? What would you do? Those of you who are out there that are watching, what would you do to solve the goalie problem? There's no doubt we have one. You've got to solve it. Here's the situation. Joe's got it up for you right now. What do you do? Joe, what do you do?
Here's the thing.
I'll tell you what I do, but you tell me first what you're going to
do.
No,
you go first. I want to hear this.
Okay. Here's the reality. Ville Husso's not performing. You've got 2 other goaltenders who are performing. So you're going to have to, I think you need to start them more often, minimize your exposure to your goalie who's struggling, work with him on where he's struggling and see if he comes up, if he can improve dramatically, but you reduce the exposure. Don't quit starting him as much as you are. Start one of the other ones. And then if it rolls around to say mid-January-ish, I'd give it another 3-4 weeks of play. And if you can't remedy the situation, now you've got to look at the trade deadline will be looming. You're going to have to start looking for a potential trade, even though I think he's got a no movement clause in his contract. I'm not certain of that, but you might have to just literally just suck it up, Benjamin, and play somebody else and hire another goaltender. Find a way to do that. But that's what I would do. I would give another 3 to 4 weeks, minimize the exposure, work with Husso, see if he gets better. And if he doesn't, I think you've got to look at making a move.
Well, I got kind of a bold take.
Oh boy.
I think a lot of people are going to be like, wait, what? So there's two ways you can go about this. You can go about this and you can say, let's ride it out, see what happens. Or you could just make the move now. Or you can wait to make the move in January. But if you wait to make it any more on, like if you're going into the trade deadline, you might be too late. There's 2 players that I have in mind, and their teams are going through full rebuild. So this is how it's going to go.
So you're saying you would trade Husso away now?
Well, I don't think you're going to be able to trade Husso the way he's playing. But I think that you can get another goaltender in here. Maybe you're going to give away a goaltender. Like if I mention the name I'm about to mention, would you give away Sebastian Cossa for Jacob Markstrom from the Calgary Flames? They're a rebuilding team. They need it. They're not going to be in contention any sooner. Do they think about moving Markstrom? And then the other goalie I'm about to mention is going to be a shocker because we all know this goaltender. If you watch hockey, you know this goaltender. Marc-Andre Fleury. The Minnesota Wild just fired their general manager. They are at the bottom of their division. They just fired their general manager. They said, screw you, you're out of here. So at some point, Marc-Andre Fleury, he's a veteran. Minnesota's going to be like, we got to get this guy out of here because he deserves to go to a contender or have a chance to go win somewhere. And the fact of the matter is this. You get Marc-Andre Fleury, you get Jacob Markstrom, you put them in your goalie room, instantly gets better. Instantly gets better. So those are 2 names I'm kind of looking at because I think if you look at Markstrom, if you look at if you look at Fleury, and there's another one too. If you really want to go this route, because he's been the general manager that I'm about to talk about. He did spend time in the Red Wings organization. He did spend time with Little Caesars hockey, and that's Pat Verbeek. And he has a goaltender named John Gibson. And Anaheim is another team that they have another goaltender up coming up the pike. Maybe you get rid of one of your players for John Gibson. If you're at that play, if you know that you have a playoff team, go make that trade. And Stevie Y has shown us the ability to make that risky move. He's shown us the ability where to make the team better, he's going to go out there and make a move. And he did that with the Brinket. He did that with Patrick Kane. We're starting to see Stevie Y get a little more aggressive than he was early in his tenure with the Red Wings. And I think that it's either defenseman or goalie. Maybe he can land both in the same trade. I don't know, but I think he's gonna. I don't think Stevie Y is done playing the bold move game. I really don't.
See, now I thought he was, and I told everybody about this too. I said Stevie's going to bring in a very big name, and I couldn't say who it was at the time, and people wouldn't have believed me anyway, even if I had told them that Patrick Kane was on the radar, right? They wouldn't have believed me. I did say a big name, and I said Steve was going to do that, and I thought he was going to do it before Christmas. So here we go. So I kind of thought he sort of shot the load, to be honest with you. I'll be surprised if he brings in another big name, but he's got to do something about his netminder problem. That's the reality. There's not enough Patrick Kane in this team anywhere to make up for what you are giving up in net. So he's got to make a change somewhere. Would I give up Sebastian Cossa for it? I don't think Steve's going to do that. I just don't. Too much into the future and the new guys, and he really believes that Sebastian Cossa is potentially, the future of the organization as far as goaltenders go. So I can't see him doing that.
The only reason I put that little olive branch in there, the only reason I put that olive branch out there is because I think they have another goaltender coming up the pike, and his name is Trey Augustine, and he's doing a damn good job at Michigan State. I think when you
struggling right now anyway.
Yeah, I think when you look at Cossa and you look at Augustine, I think one's going to have to go. And I think the way Augustine's playing in college hockey, I think that he can make the transition more to the NHL. I think that the way he's playing against some good competition in the Big Ten hockey, I think Trey Augustine as a freshman, stellar. Cossa right now, not as stellar. So who would I really give up to in a trade? Cossa, no doubt. But if that's only for a certain goalie, it would be either Markstrom or Gibson that would have to Cossa would be around. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't surprise me to see him move one of. I think he's more likely to move someone like Simon Edvinsson. I think he's more likely to trade for even maybe one of his forward choices. Right. I don't see him trading out a future goalie and potentially trading out is either a pick or a couple of prospects who, maybe I don't know if you do with Soderblom. Maybe
he's got a lot of depth where he can make a trade like that. So
yes, he absolutely can. He can trade away some of his prospects because he's allowed this cream to rise to the top and he's made his selections. But he knows he's going to need some of those guys moving forward. But he's got enough to choose from. So I don't think either one of. I don't know if I'd go with Fleury though. I got to tell you, I think I'd be more likely to go with the first choice. I don't think I'd go with Fleury. He's got experience, but I mean, I hate to say this. You know me, I'm the last person to say, hey, the guy's old. But Marc-Andre Fleury has had consistency problems himself, and he is getting considerably older. So I'm not sure I'd go that route, but I would be open to a trade with first option. So.
Yeah, the only reason I say Fleury is he's not having a greatest year, but Minnesota's not having the greatest year either. And I think if you made a trade with Fleury, maybe you can get like a defenseman, like one of their defensemen, because they have a couple of them that are up for contract renewals. That's the only reason I mentioned that. But next we got to get to the real part. So
the real part, we're talking some real stuff here. What else you got? I know who you're going to talk about because you have liked this guy from. There's a couple of guys. Well, there's two of them that I think are really coming up. Go ahead, you take yours first.
Let's look at the leaderboard. In goals, DeBrincat, Larkin, Raymond, Fabry. Sprong. Sprong's your guy. If we go back there. Gossesbear assists 16, Larkin 14, Raymond 14, DeBrinket 13, Compher 13, and Sider had 13 as well. On that list, who really excites you and who is really surprising you the most in this little run?
So that's an interesting question because you said, who do I like most and who's surprising me most? I've always liked him from the start, and I'm not surprised because as long as Robbie Fabry stays healthy, Robbie Fabry's a producer.
Now
So
I knew you were gonna go Robbie Fabry because there's two
I
things.
am going Robbie Fabry, yes.
I don't know if you guys are watching football, but there is a player for the New York Giants called Tommy DeVito. Okay, he is taking the football world by
Tommy
storm.
DeVito. I
Well,
like him. He's a
they call him
paisan.
they call him Tommy Cut they call him Tommy Cutlets. So you're going with the Italian
I can
stallion
dig it.
again. You're going with the Italian person. That's
Yeah.
that's the name of the game right now because Tommy DeVito is like the hotness right now because he's over there winning games and then they're doing the whole Tommy DeVito and then he's got his agent over there just being a total Guido. So it's like
I
it's
love it.
crazy. I love it.
I love it. Those are my people. We're paisan. I love it.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I said that to Robbie Fabry the first time I met him. I said, "So nice to meet you." I said, "Welcome to the Red Wings." I said, "We're paisan." And I told him how cute he was because he's Italian. I said, "Of course, we're good-looking Italians. That's what we do." And he liked that.
You could tell that Fabry is Italian just the way that his the name and everything.
Oh,
Man, has he been just outstanding though? The
yeah.
shot he's playing out of his mind and good for him too because to be honest, like all the injuries he's dealt with, anybody could have quit. And I think if you are in any sport, you have a kid that's in any sport, all you have to do is put on Robbie Fabry and just tell him like, look, this guy when injury after injury, tore both knees. Like this guy has gone through the gauntlet, and still he's going and making plays for his team. And the fact that he's out playing out his mind. 9 goals, like he's ahead. He's like almost near the top of this team. And for Fabry, it's a great story for him.
Yeah.
It's a great story for anybody that has kids that might be dealing with injuries from sports or whatever. Like just get back in there and start rolling because this kid's a good story, and I love that he's overcame so much because it's hard to deal with injuries that he's dealt with and still keep it going. Like it's really hard.
Yeah, no, he's got a great attitude, great guy. He's got all the swagger too. I think he's just a very high value asset in so many ways. And so long as he stays healthy, that's the thing, I mean, the sad part about it is when Robbie Fabry's not healthy, he's not on the ice producing. And so, but when he is, you can count on him to be there. I mean, from the very first game I saw him in, he scored. The first game he came to Detroit, he scored. So it's like he hasn't stopped producing since he got here, except for when, he's got those stretches of health challenges. But
the injuries have hurt him, but he's played so well. And another guy that's played so well is another Italian, and that is Joe Veleno. Now, Joe Veleno is playing out of his freaking mind. The shot percentage is 20%, so that's great. His goals, 7 goals, 5 assists, 12 points. But what I've really noticed about Veleno is he's playing a two-way game now. Used to be when he was on the ice, he would get kind of like this offensive guy. But I think Joe Veleno really went into the offseason, really realized that, he had to revamp his game. He's a former first-round pick. Probably not what he expected his career to be, but just to revamp himself, put himself in a better situation, get himself better for this upcoming season. He's been one of the key players for this team, and he's moved his way up the lineup because of his hard work and his tenacity, and he's moved up only because he's playing a two-way game. It's just great to see.
Well, and he was struggling. I think that Joe Veleno thought that he kind of had it all going on, and then it just his game started to deteriorate. I think he got distracted. And I said that for several seasons. I was sending out the message to him, Joe, you're distracted. Joe, you're distracted. Obviously, I had people that were telling me things from inside the organization. They said, hey, Joe's distracted with other things, with the lifestyle and everything else. And I think he needed to just balance all that out. I think he needed to get recentered, refocused, and recognize that the reality was he was another one that was headed to the trade block. And I think it was either him or Zadina. and they chose Zadina, giving Joe Veleno a stay of execution that's allowed him to rebound and now start playing the kind of hockey that they expected to see out of Joe Veleno for the last several seasons that they haven't seen. Because again, consistency problems. You saw flashes of this talent, and now what you're seeing is that you're seeing it on a consistent basis. So to your point, he's playing out of his mind, and even better than that, Joe, he's doing it consistently now. So he's becoming more and more reliable, and that's what you need, especially when you're going into the playoffs.
Yeah, I just like the way that Veleno's playing. He's playing great, and it's the two-way game's been just well needed, especially with the Larkin injury, the Compher injury. We obviously missed JT Compher. That hopefully he comes back tomorrow or Saturday. But the simple fact of the matter is that these guys that we haven't been talking about, that we didn't really think were going to be huge players, like Fabry, like Veleno, they've been absolutely huge to this team in this stretch, and that's exactly what you wanted to see out of your team. You wanted to see these guys grow up and kind of get better and help make this team better, and that's what they've been doing. And it's good to see because I like Veleno as a player. I think that he's a very talented guy, and I like Fabry because he's got a good story to him, and hopefully he stays healthy.
Yes, because we're going to have there's going to be a little bit of ground that has to be made up here in the month of December to make up for that stretch of losses that we had for that little adjustment period. And we've got to hope that we can make the most of them, because what's got me concerned, Joe, I'm a little bit worried about is the fact that, Toronto is up by a point and they still have 2 games to play. They're 2 games ahead of us, in the pocket, and they're still a point ahead. So we really need Toronto has got to lose. They got to go on a losing streak, and the Wings have to go on a winning streak to even maintain their position in the wild card at this point, because Washington's right on our tail. They got 3 games to go, and they're only 3 points behind us with 3 in the bank that they can afford to lose 1, pick up 2, and we'll find ourselves fighting for that wild card spot with the Caps. So we really have to kind of buckle down, get it figured out here real quick, and start to make up some ground in the month of December. But if guys like Veleno and Fabry continue to play the way that they're playing, we're going to go a long way toward that. And then when we get back Larkin, get back Perron, get back Compher, then what we've got is, and what's so exciting is now you have 4 productive lines. Our challenge in the past has always been we're weak up the center. I think we've remedied that problem. And also, we only really had 2 lines that were even capable of producing. Now you've got 4 solid lines, all 4 of which can produce, and you've got some gritty toughness to go along with it. And so I think that positions us very well. We just have to make the most out of these opportunities we're going to get between now and the All-Star break.
Yeah, and I think when you look at this upcoming schedule, I'm getting it up here. It didn't load for some reason, but when you look at this schedule coming up, it's like it's not this easy schedule. I mean, you look at Carolina; they're a pretty damn good team. No. You look at the Philadelphia Flyers on the road. Philadelphia is always a tough team to play against, and then you play the Ducks, and I really don't see a team on there that obviously Philly's going through a rebuild, but I don't see a team on there that you could say, let's just go in there and win, and we're going to go in there and win anyways. I mean, these in the NHL, it's tough to win games, but these are non-divisional games, and this is a chance. You have a good chance of making some really good, progress with these games coming up, because Philly's not a good team and Anaheim's not a good team, and you can take advantage of them really quickly, but you need to get these guys. You need to make sure that you win at least 2 of these games, in my opinion.
Well, see, here's what worries me about this schedule. What worries me about the schedule is, you got some tough teams coming up. You got to play Boston on New Year's Eve. So, and that's a little bit further down the road, but you've got some tough competition you've got to play. I think they have to play New York. I think they're somewhere in the schedule too. But so you got these quote unquote easy games or easy teams to play. Well, the reality is when they went through this last little losing stretch, 2 out of the 3 teams they played were 2 of the worst teams in the entire league. Yep. And they lost to them. So I'm worried about the fact that those aren't gimmies. You know what I'm saying? These easy teams we play aren't gimmies. And I said this in the last show too, in that the Wings tend to really perform better when they're put under pressure to play a good team like Boston. I actually expect them to beat Boston. I do. They tend to do well. I think we're just their Achilles heel. We tend to do well against Boston. which will bode well for us and help balance out the standings a little bit. But what happens when we have to go back in front of Toronto? Where's Florida going to be at that point? Right now, these are the two teams that are ahead of us in division. So I don't know what their strength of schedule looks like, but it's kind of like I look at our schedule and I say, I would rather look at historically which teams we've done well against, and those are the ones that I can get excited about. But just because these other teams aren't performing well, doesn't mean we can beat them, because we haven't been.
Yeah, I know. I kind of harken that to, maybe it's a younger team, especially with those two games that we lost. They were the easy games that we had last time. I think that was an adjustment period. I mean, the San Jose Sharks game, they should have won that game, and they didn't. But they came back and they won against St. Louis. They should have. That game in Dallas, that should have been a way closer score than it was, but it wasn't. So they got to make some hay on it, because this division is really tough. And if you lose, you go on a losing streak and you start going 5-5 in your next 20, 5-5 in your next 10, and then do the same thing in the next 20. I mean, you can put yourself in a really big hole, because one of these teams is going to start getting hot. I mean, I think Tampa Bay is going to get hot at some point. I think Toronto is going to get hot at some point. And you just got to keep pace. You're a good team too. You're not some slouch. I mean, everyone says it. Everyone says it when they're on the national broadcast. This Red Wings team, they're way different than they were last year. And for us, we watch these guys and we go, okay, they're playing really, really well. So I mean, it's something where you're kind of expecting them to be better in these games where they should win, but ultimately, I think maybe you lose focus and sometimes you get ahead of yourself. I think when you're a young team like, the Red Wings are, like the Lions are, I think sometimes when you go through these stretches and you think that you should beat the team that you're supposed to beat, sometimes you get a little ahead of yourself, a little overconfident, you get a little kind of arrogant in your ways, and you forget about the basics. And that's exactly what I think would happen with the Red Wings, because they should not have lost to San Jose at all, and they did. And that whole second period where they scored 4 goals and then they gave up 4 goals, just terrible hockey on both teams. So, I mean,
I don't get it.
It's
really don't. I don't get it, Joe. Why? What the issue I'm having with the Red Wings, the biggest problem I've got is when they're up by 3 goals or more, they tend to just give up. Or they don't give up. I think it's an overconfidence. They just think they got it and everything's going to go well, and they take their foot off the gas. You can't do that. It's the opposite. You got to put your foot on the gas. It's like I was in Florida this last week, and I stayed overnight on with some friends of ours who one of them is a former hockey player and former official in the WHL. Actually, funny Gordie Howe story there. Talk about guys getting on the ice with someone who's intimidating. Try going out and being an official for Gordie Howe, and he said he actually made a call. And they called a penalty on Gordie Howe. And he's like, he just had to say, "I'm so sorry, Mr. Howe." He apologized to him for calling the penalty on him. Gordie's like, "Hey, don't worry about it, Kev. I got it, So it's no worries. Don't you worry about it, kind of thing. So you do behave a little differently when you got legends on the ice with you, hence your Patrick Kane question. I was going to bring it up back then, but anyway, the point is that he said the exact same thing. He said when he watches the Wings, what he sees that they're taking their foot off the gas, and all professionals know you got to put your foot on the gas. And Sun Tzu in The Art of War, which is like the strategy book of all strategists, right? Like we live and die by it in politics. I can tell you that in political strategy, but it works in sports also. And one of the things he basically said was when you're going into the field of battle, you have to assess the situation. And if you have outmanned and outgunned the opponent, you don't just take the field of battle at that day. You push forward to the next battleground when you've got the advantage. And the Wings have to start taking that posture. They have to start pushing forward. When you've got a 4-goal lead, you want to try to make it a 5-goal, 6-goal, 8-goal lead. You want those ridiculously high numbers, because I don't care if you shut them out. I don't care but if you're gonna give up 5 goals and you've got a 5-goal lead, you better be pushing forward. And if you take that offensive posture, then you've got them on defense. It changes the whole dynamic of the game. So I don't know why they falter in that, but it drives me absolutely insane. And if they don't remedy that, it won't even matter if they get in the playoffs because any championship team is going to catch them in a trick bag there.
Well, you see this with young teams all the time. I think, the whole kind of that's why you're lucky to have the veteran leadership that you have. When you have these young teams, sometimes they get into the portion where they're like, okay, we're up 4-0. We can stop playing the way that we got this 4-0 lead. And that's just not the way it works, especially in the NHL, in the NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA. Doesn't matter what sport you're playing. These guys are going to be pressing. I mean, it's not like there is no mercy rule. They're going to be fighting for their lives too. So you got to make sure that you kind of keep them down. Like it's always said in football where like when you have a shot to throw a kill shot at a team, you have to do it. You literally have to do it because you don't know what's going to happen. In hockey, it's like let's say you take 2 penalties, you're a 5-on-3. That could be 2 goals just as quickly as you thought about it. And I think that's exactly what happens. I mean, like the Red Wings giving up 2 shorthanded goals to the San Jose Sharks, not ideal. They took their foot off the gas. They were lackadaisical. They were not aware of what could happen if they take their foot off the gas. San Jose is a scrappy team. Okay, these teams that are kind of like struggling in the standings, they're gonna be fighting. Okay, they're not gonna go away just because their team sucks. Okay. Every player in the team is playing for another contract somewhere. If it's not with the Sharks, it's with the Lightning or the Stars or the Kraken or something. They're always playing for something. These guys are always playing for something. So I remember I heard a podcast about I think it was the Kelsey podcast, and they were saying like every game that you go into, you have to have the mindset of you're about to get your ass whooped, because if you don't, that's when you get your ass whooped.
That's right. That's right.
Man, so we got to a lot in this podcast. It was a great podcast, and obviously we got our page back, so that's pretty good. And we're gonna start doing these podcasts live, and then we're gonna podcast it after the show. But Cindy, this has been a great podcast. You got anything left you want to say?
Got to make changes, and we got to make them sooner rather than later. I got to tell you, I'm still pulling for them. I still think we're going to make the playoffs, but I'm concerned about how deep we can get. One other thing before I talk about that, on the plane home, we picked up a new follower. I want to say hello to the McIntyre family from Kalamazoo, and they've got a great author getting ready to come out of that family. She's just little yet, but she's on her way up, and her brother plays junior hockey, of course, because they are a hockey family. I said, matter of fact, Mom said, excuse me, can I get up to go to the bathroom? I said, sure. And I said, are you Canadian? She's like, yes, I'm from Canada. And I'm like, perfect. I said, so you're a hockey fan. Well, that's all it took. And but they're Red Wings fans, so I want them to hang in there. Keep watching the Red Alert podcast. Keep checking our page, because you're going to hear all the best hockey news first.
Yeah, and we're going to have a lot of great stuff coming your way. So stay tuned to that. And if you miss part of the show, you can go listen to it on the Apple and Spotify and go follow us there. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next podcast of the Red Alert podcast. We'll see you next week. Probably maybe Tuesday, I would think. But I think you got your board meeting, so Wednesday. We'll go Wednesday or Thursday. We'll go that. But we'll see you guys in the next podcast. We know Cindy's busy. She's busy kissing babies and hanging out with John Travolta.
Stop now.
That is not a lie. She was hanging out with John Travolta. I'm gonna start that rumor. We'll see
I'll
you guys.
Never tell.
You never tell anything. So
I've got awesome friends just like you, Joe. See, I'll throw you.
You're like Garth Brooks. You got friends in low places, so that's all it needs to be said.
Look forward to seeing you next week, my friend.
All right, I'll see you next week, and you guys have a great week, and let's go get a win tomorrow against Carolina and Philadelphia and Anaheim. So that'd be great. We'll see you guys in the next podcast. Have a good one.
See you then.